Hello everyone, I Nidhi, your friend and coach, welcome you to your very own channel English with Nidhi. And in this video, we will cover a poem from class 12 CBSE English literature book Flamingo, and the poem is Keeping Quiet by the poet Pablo Neruda. So without any further ado, let's get started. The poem Keeping Quiet was originally written by Pablo Neruda in Spanish, but later translated into English. It emphasizes on the importance of self-introspection, sustaining peace and silence. Let's read the poem now. Keeping Quiet. Now we will count to 12 and we will all keep still. For once, on the face of the earth, let's not speak any language. Let's stop for a second and not move our arms so much. It would be an exotic moment without rush, without engines. We would all be together in a sudden strangeness. Fisherman in the cold sea would not harm whales, and the man gathering salt would look at his hurt hands. Those who prepare green wars, wars with gas, wars with fire, victory with no survivors, would put on clean clothes and walk about with their brothers in the shade doing nothing. What I want should not be confused with total inactivity. Life is what it is about. I want no truck with death. If we were not so single-minded about keeping our lives moving and for once could do nothing, perhaps a huge silence might interrupt the sadness of never understanding ourselves and of threatening ourselves with death. Perhaps the earth can teach us as when everything seems dead and later proves to be alive. Now I'll count up to 12 and you will keep quiet and I'll go. By Pablo Neruda. Before we cover the summary and explanation and important word meanings of the poem, let's read the brief introduction of the poet. About the poet. His full name was Pablo Neruda. He was born on 12 July 1904 in Chile and died on 23 September 1973 at the age of 69 in Chile as well. By occupation, he was a Spanish poet, a diplomat and a politician. His notable works include 20 love poems and a song of despair in English. And his notable awards include International Peace Prize in the year 1950, Stalin Peace Prize in the year 1953 and Nobel Prize in Literature in the year 1971. Now let's cover the important word meanings from the poem. 1. Still, that is motionless. 2. Exotic, that is unusual. 3. Rush, that is hurry or haste. 4. Engines, that is machines. 5. Together, that is collectively. 6. Strangeness, that is unfamiliarity. 7. Prepare, that is arrange. 8. Survivors, that is persevere. 9. Shade, that is shadow or shelter. 10. Confused, that is unclear. 11. Inactivity, that is idleness or stillness. 12. Single-minded, that is focused or determined. 13. Sadness, that is sorrow. 14. Interrupt, that is disturb or halt. 15. Teach, that is educate or instruct. 16. Alive, that is living. And 17. Quiet, that is silent or still. Moving on, let's cover the summary and explanation of the poem. Summary and explanation. Lines 1 to 6. Now we will count to 12 and we will all keep still. For once on the face of the earth, let's not speak in any language. Let's stop for one second and not move our arms so much. Through these lines, the poet asks us to keep silent after he is done counting up to 12. He wants us to stay motionless and not move our arms very much, as by doing so we would distract ourselves from being silent. The poet urges us to not speak the regional languages, but to rather speak the language of silence for once. Lines 7 to 14. It would be an exotic moment without rush, without engines. We would be all together in a sudden strangeness. Fishermen in the cold sea would not harm whales, and the man gathering salt would look at his hurt hands. These lines suggest that when people from all over the world, irrespective of their religions, languages, and nationalities, remain quiet for a while, where they do not hurt others or get hurt themselves, they will experience moments of peace and quietness. The word engines here mean industry, factory, or vehicles. Lines 15 to 20. Those who prepare green wars, wars with gas, wars with fire, victory with no survivors, would put on clean clothes and walk about with their brothers in the shade doing nothing. Through these lines, the poet says that different type of wars do more harm than good. Wars with gas, fire, and green wars all harm us, our environment, living things, and nature as a whole. These wars take thousands of lives. So, when the poet tells the people to stop whatever they are doing, he urges these men at wars to stop as well. He urges them to wear clean clothes that are not muddy and bloody due to these wars. The poet asks these men to stop the war, rediscover the feeling of brotherhood among themselves, and walk alongside with peace and harmony. Lines 21 to 31. What I want should not be confused with total inactivity. Life is what it is about. I want no truck with death. If we were not so single-minded about keeping our lives moving and for once could do nothing, perhaps a huge silence might interrupt the sadness of never understanding ourselves and of threatening ourselves with death. Through these lines, the poet further explains himself, saying that what he wants from us should not be confused. He says that this activity, where he wants us to be calm and quiet, should not be confused as a state of complete inactivity, as us being completely inactive would mean that we are dead. The poet only wants the cruelty, violence, and destructive activities to stop. He wants us to be thoughtful. He wants us to take a break from our hectic lives and take a moment to reflect on ourselves, on our lives, and things and people that surround or are related to us. Lines 32 to 36. Perhaps the earth can teach us, as when everything seems dead and later comes to be alive. Now I'll count up to 12 and you'll keep quiet and I'll go. Through these lines, the poet says that we should learn the power of regeneration and rebirth from our Mother Earth. He further compares this activity with the functioning of the earth. During winters, the earth looks pale and lifeless, just like death, but as spring slowly arrives, it starts to look alive again. The birds on the trees start to burst, bloom, and blossom, and there is greenery all around. Winter seems to freeze everything, but it is followed by spring, which brings new life and harmony to the earth. And so is the cycle of life. It runs in an endless loop and a never-ending cycle. Life is filled with happiness and sorrows. There might be what feels like an endless struggle, but we should have faith and belief that it too would pass. In the end, the poet leaves us on a note of silent introspection that implicitly urges humanity to realize its mistake and move towards a more humane future. Since this video is getting longer than intended, let's divide it into two parts. Let's stop this video here. But before ending it, let's summarize the things we covered so far in the poem. We covered the introduction to the poem, we read the poem, we covered the brief introduction to the poet, we covered the difficult words, their meanings, and lastly, we covered the stanza-wise summary and explanation of the poem. In the next part of this poem, let's cover the rhyme scheme, poetic devices, central theme, and some important MCQs from the poem. Till then, take care and study hard. Recommend the channel to your friends and family and help us grow. Also, Like, share and subscribe to your very own channel for more such content. Press the notification icon to never miss an update. See you soon. Thank you.